Well, hey folks, a medical examiner revealed that Charles Vallow may have been shot while lying on the ground. I think we kind of knew that, but it casts serious doubt on Lori's self-defense claim. And then came the bombshell fraud allegations. A federal agent testifying, and more information about how Lori Daybell kept cashing in on Charles's Social Security even after marrying Chad Daybell. While representing herself, Lori sparred with witnesses, blamed bureaucratic mistakes, and gave us a raw look at her unraveling defense. Well, hey everybody, welcome to Profiling Evil, where we dig into the facts, we try to explore a little psychology, and we break down criminal behaviors one case at a time. Now, if you're into true crime without the nonsense, hit the like and subscribe button down below. Ring the bell, make sure you've got notifications turned on, and please consider sharing us with your friends. Now let's take a closer look at the evil behind the headlines surrounding the Daybell case. That's where we are now, day 5 of Lori Daybell's murder trial against killing her husband, Charles Vallow. The morning session in Lori Daybell's Arizona murder trial was packed with emotional testimony, with technical details, and moments of real courtroom tension. Once again, Lori Vallow made sure she took center stage. This time cross-examining a medical examiner, a federal agent, and a few other cops. Everyone in the room was on edge at a few points during today's testimony. She spent more time testifying, though, than questioning, in my opinion. Now, the medical examiner revealed how Charles Vallow died, and it was tied together with testimony that showed that she was taking Social Security payments fraudulently. So let me start with a clear and engaging summary of Dr. Derek Baumgartner's, the medical examiner's, testimony in the Charles Vallow death, Lori Vallow Daybell's murder trial, and the impact that Lori's cross-examination had on him. Now, the medical examiner said there were no drugs or alcohol found in Charles's system. That is incredibly important because this guy was completely sober at the time of his death. His cause of death was 2 distinct gunshot wounds, and those gunshot wounds came from the weapon that Alex Cox admitted firing. So the first shot entered Charles Vallow's chest, dead center, with the bullet exiting out the mid-back area. Now, the wound pierced the sternum, which is this bone running down that holds the rib cage together. And it went through the right atrium and the left ventricle of this guy's heart. Now, it continued through his spine before exiting in his back. The doctor testified that the trajectory was straight on, front, kind of right to left, in a slightly downward direction. There was stippling present, indicating that Alex Cox was only 2 to 4 feet away from Charles when he shot him. And the medical examiner said that the shot caused death, although it's really hard to determine whether he died instantaneously or whether he suffered for a bit, which could be seconds to several minutes before he would have passed away. Now, the second shot is even more telling of what was going on in the room, though, and how personal this crime was. This time, Charles was lying on the ground, and the trajectory of the bullet would suggest that Alex Cox was now standing at the foot of Charles, maybe 1 to 2 feet away from his feet, facing him. The second bullet came up through his left abdomen and traveled through his left lung, tearing apart the 4th rib on his back, and then all the connecting tissue back there before it exited near his shoulder in the back. Now, the trajectory on this round was front to back, right to left, and upward. So bottom line is the location of the bullet exited Charles' body, creating this short exit wound that they were talking about so much. And short exit wounds are strong indications that Charles was lying against something hard, in this case, on the ground, with his shoulder pressed against this hard surface at the time the bullet exited his body. This second shot also left stippling, but it suggested that Cox was probably 4 to 5 feet away from the abdomen. So theoretically, it could be about a foot, maybe 2 feet from Charles's feet as he lay on his back on the ground with that gunshot wound to the chest. And keep in mind that the forensics here prove that he was shot first in the chest, fell backwards, and then the second shot came. Now, the stippling is really important, and to help you better understand stippling, it's just this kind of pattern of tiny abrasions or little red marks on the skin that are caused by partially burned or even unburned gunpowder particles as they strike the body after a gun is fired at close range. Now, this is a little different than what we see when the gun is closer. Stippling differs from charring, which is when the weapon is closer to the body and it actually leaves soot on the body. And again, it's from the weapon being fired much closer to the victim, and it's burning or this soot or scarring that occurs. Now, when a firearm discharges, it releases a combination of the bullet coming out, the burned gunpowder, this soot that's coming out, and that's when you see the flames and all that, and then partially burned or unburned gunpowder, or stippling, and then, of course, hot gases that follow. So if the muzzle is very close to the skin, within a few inches, you're going to get soot and burn marks, really dramatic, and even more dramatic wounds. But if it's a bit further away, you're not going to see the soot most likely, but you will see these little dots appearing, which again is that gunpowder burning as it hits the skin. And it looks like almost like a rash or a kind of a strawberry kind of a look. Well, in this trial, stippling is critical forensic evidence because it supports the claim that Charles was alive and possibly standing or seated, but I think it's going to be standing just based on all the physical evidence, when that first shot was fired. It challenges claims that both shots occurred in rapid succession or during a close-range struggle, and it supports the theory that the second shot was fired after Charles had collapsed and was already on the ground, especially when paired with the sword wound that was found on his shoulder, but behind his shoulder and into the ground or into the wood flooring. Now, this is really important because you will find in Lori's testimony, in her statement to police that was recorded, she says she only heard one shot. That's really intriguing to me because if in fact she only did hear one shot, and you'll hear that Tylee also said one shot, that means that Charles may have been laying on the ground, slowly dying, and Lori pulled away, knowing that he'd been shot because we now know she was in the home, and then Alex executes him, which could have been up to a couple of minutes later, or it could have even been after his death, just exhibiting the anger that he felt. So it's really important because together, stippling helps us reconstruct the shooting sequence, and that will give jurors a powerful piece of visual evidence on distance, intent, and timing. And it's poking holes in any narrative of self-defense that Lori Daybell may have. Hopefully, it's also created an image in your mind as you see this, taking the shot here, and Charles falls back. One hand probably grabs his chest because there's only one hand with a little bit of blood on it. And then he's executed with the shot through the abdomen that exits out his shoulder. Now, the medical examiner also pointed out that there were abrasions on Charles's knee and chest. Now, consider paramortem on this thing that possibly indicates that he fell to his knees when he was shot, or he was in a physical altercation beforehand, but somehow his knees got these abrasions and bruises on him. More importantly, the medical examiner said there were no abrasions or bruises on the back of his head, which just deflates the challenges that he was already on the ground or that he hit his head or something else like that. He collapsed directly backward after being shot. Now further, blood again was only found on one of Charles's hands, and no defensive injuries were noted on his hands or his arms or anywhere else, suggesting that there was very little resistance to what happened. He was executed in the home. And it's a powerful piece of testimony that came out surrounding the forensic significance of that shored exit wound on the abdomen to shoulder shot that strongly supports this idea that Charles was already on the ground when that second shot was fired. That execution shot, although it wasn't needed because the first round went through Charles's heart. But most importantly, it undermines any claims of self-defense. Now, Lori's defense also attempts to undermine the prosecution's theory of an execution-style murder, and it suggests a couple of alternate interpretations. She tried to question whether the abrasions on Charles's knees and hands could indicate a struggle, not a collapse. Okay, I don't know. But she also floated the idea that tight or tough clothing, including his bamboo clothing, could have caused that shored exit wound, implying that he wasn't necessarily lying down when that second shot was fired. Now, in all fairness, bamboo is pretty cool clothing, I guess. It's known for being breathable, sustainable, and even soft and stretchy, but it's not bulletproof. It's not going to create a shoring miracle for her. That's just a stretch that even Amazon wouldn't try to sell as they put together a description. The medical examiner politely shot down the one idea that she had about bamboo clothing. And shot down, I guess, is a really bad pun. But he was telling the court that he wasn't familiar with bamboo clothing, but he was sure that the wound was consistent with someone lying on a flat, solid surface like the floor where the bullet was recovered, not wrapped in some jungle-friendly t-shirt. And the medical examiner also reiterated that bamboo clothing or falling through the air wouldn't cause a short exit wound. The person has to already be in contact with a hard surface, and that proves that Charles was already on the ground. Well, Lori's cross-examination fell flat when she tried to inject these uncertainties into the medical examiner's conclusions. But the ME, his experience, his clarity, and his calm demeanor made those alternate theories seem speculative at best, if not foolish. To make sure his testimony was tied with a bow, though, the prosecution reinforced their narrative that the second shot was a deliberate shot and that Charles was likely already on the ground, possibly incapacitated, when he was shot the second time. And that ended the segment of the medical examiner, affirming there was no medical evidence of a sustained physical fight or scuffle that would support self-defense. It was an execution. In my opinion, the medical examiner's testimony was devastating for the defense. The autopsy didn't just show how Charles Vallow died, it suggested how he didn't die, that it wasn't in a wild scuffle, it wasn't during a chaotic confrontation, but it was a sequence of calculated, close-range shots, the second of which may have been delivered as he lay dying on the ground. So kudos to the prosecution, because I think it was kind of a brilliant way to remind us that this homicide wasn't self-defense. It was something far darker, and it might be laying the groundwork for a premeditated kind of event or episodic event where they can really show the elements of this premeditated murder. Now, the next person to testify was Special Agent Mark Saari, an investigator for the Social Security Department, the Inspector General's office. This is a federal agency, a federal agent like an FBI agent. This agent testified about Lori's Social Security fraud, where he revealed that after Charles Vallow's death, Lori applied for survivor benefits for herself and for JJ. She claimed that she was still living with Charles at the time of his death, and that's a key requirement for getting the benefit eligibility. Now, the investigator also clarified that Lori was receiving $1,951 a month for JJ and a one-time back pay of $3,902, plus additional payments as a mother in care. So she was getting, by some reports, as much as $4,000 a month. Then the kicker came, though. The agent confirmed that the Social Security benefits should have ceased when Lori Vallow became Lori Daybell, marrying Chad Daybell in November of 2019. Yet there's no record existing of her reporting the marriage to Social Security. And when Lori attempted to argue that the Social Security employees might have made some mistakes and that she was unaware of certain rules, her cross-examination suggested that she kind of wanted the jury to believe that she didn't understand the system. It all seemed to kind of fall flat. Now, the next witness was really perfect timing because it was a representative from the life insurance company who was carrying Charles Vallow's life insurance policy. And in that testimony came out the fact that his life insurance policy was probably about $1 million. And it was changed from Lori to his sister Kay Woodcock. The change occurred in February of 2019, some 5 months before Charles's July death. And it was properly notarized and it was properly recorded. And when Lori tried to find out what happened, they wouldn't tell her where it was going. So that's a real interesting question about how she found out that it had been put into Kay Woodcock's name. But while she was on the call, Lori introduced herself clearly as Charles's wife and confirmed that she was the beneficiary of the policy, at least in her opinion. Well, this is important because it's evidence that she didn't know that the policy had been changed. And that could point toward motive and pre-planning, because when she was asked for the cause of death, Lori hesitated a little, knowing that if she said suicide, obviously, that's not going to get a payout. And she didn't quite know how to handle it. She described it by saying, quote, "Well, he was shot. I don't know how I want to put that," close quote. Well, when asked directly if it was a homicide, Lori responded, "No, it was an accident." Her voice was sweet and calmly clear. Now, this is a woman who just lost her husband to what she thinks is an accident. She requested that the claim packet be sent via email and concluded the call with this kind of polite, sweetsy, "That's it, I think. Thank you." I guess my question becomes, why do you think she wanted the information emailed? Personally, I think it's because she had plans to immediately head toward Rexburg, Idaho, and her lover, Chad Daybell. Now, surely, email's much more efficient than snail mail, but she had a couple of murders to plan, some revelations to receive, and a wedding to get scheduled. So before I leave the phone call to the insurance company, I want to also comment that Lori's tone in the call was remarkably composed, almost too composed, considering that her husband had just been killed. She sounded calm, controlled, and procedural, traits that are not inherently suspicious on their own, but odd given the gravity of the conversation. If she truly had just witnessed a homicide, even if she didn't know it was coming, I think it's pretty normal to think she would be more upset than this. But what really stood out to me was how she tried to sound like a grieving widow while subtly distancing herself from the violence of Charles's death. Instead of saying, "Hey, he was killed by my brother in an argument," she says, "He was shot," and then awkwardly adds, "I don't know how I want to put that." It's almost as if she's weighing how to minimize the impact or carefully manage how this death is framed so that she can get the insurance. Well, when the insurance rep plainly asked her if it was a homicide again, Lori, despite knowing that her brother Alex shot Charles in what she claims was self-defense, flat out denies it. Instead, she says, no, it was an accident. This was a critical moment because calling a gunshot death an accident, especially when it's the subject of an active investigation, is a clear attempt to downplay suspicions and perhaps expedite the payout. Throughout that call, Lori projects a mix of subdued politeness and chilling detachment. There aren't any sobs. There's no shakiness in her voice. There's not even a forced show of sorrow. It's just facts, figures, and a quiet thank you. In my opinion, Lori Vallow wasn't just trying to cash in on Charles's death. She was working hard to frame the narrative in her favor. Whether it was her bamboo clothing theory or this it was an accident spin, Lori consistently positions herself as the victim or the confused widow, not an orchestrator. Well, this phone call isn't just about an insurance claim. It's a window into Lori's mind, how she reacts under pressure, and how she handles death, and how even in grief she's already looking ahead to the payout. The court then played a recorded phone call between Lori and the insurance company, and it's now being admitted as evidence. So I want to take a moment and listen to that phone call, and I hope you'll pay close attention to Lori's description of how Charles died.
Claims Department, this is Robin. May I have the policy number? And who am I speaking with?
This is Lori Vallow.
And your relationship to the insured?
He's my husband.
Okay, ma'am. I'm just going to need to ask you a few questions so that I can open the claim, and then I can go over the claim procedure with you and answer any questions that you may have afterwards.
That would be great.
Okay. First of all, may I have your daytime phone number, please? And what was the date of Mr. Vallow's passing?
July 11th.
And what was the cause of his passing?
Well, he was shot.
Okay.
So I don't know how I want to put that.
Okay. All right. And I hate to ask, but is it? Yeah, you can just say yes or no. Was it a homicide?
No, it was an accident.
An accident. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what state did he pass away in?
Arizona.
Okay. Are you aware of who the primary beneficiary of the policy is?
It's me.
Okay. And may I have your, I'm sorry, one moment. My computer just went away for a second. Okay. And may I have your current mailing address?
Sure. It's 5531 South 4 FOUR Peaks, PEAKS Place.
Okay.
In Chandler, Arizona.
Okay, ma'am. That is all the information I need to open the claim. What we will do now is review the policy and the file to confirm the beneficiary information and determine the claim requirements that we will need to settle this particular claim. Once we have completed our review, we will prepare a claim packet to send to the named beneficiary once that has been confirmed. And the claim packet can either be mailed or emailed or faxed. How would you like to receive a correspondence?
Email would be great.
Okay, and what is your email address? Okay. All right, so you should receive an email from our office within the next 3 to 5 business days or sooner. It will have the instructions listed. Once you receive the information, if you have any questions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to give our office a call, and then we can go from there. Okay, is there anything I can help you with at this time?
That's it, I think.
Okay, ma'am. Well, I'm very sorry for your loss. You take care of yourself.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So here we see Lori serving as her own counsel, continuing her pattern of posing suggestive questions, attempting to lay groundwork for a defense that claims ignorance, administrative error, or confusion around federal benefits. but her phrasing often veered into testimonial territory, in my opinion. In fact, it prompted repeated objections by the prosecution and a lot of rebukes by Judge Boreski. Well, before lunch, the judge also took care of a few courtroom management issues. He confirmed that the jury selection for Brandon Bedreau's attempted murder case, which is connected to this in a broader saga, will begin on May 19th with opening statements scheduled for June 2nd. So this thing isn't going away, even though this particular case on Charles Vallow seems to be moving pretty quickly. Well, after lunch, we heard about two law enforcement witnesses, Jeff Moberg, a forensic firearms examiner with the Arizona Department of Public Safety, who identified that he checked the weapon that was used to kill Charles Vallow. It was a Springfield Armory XDM .45 caliber semi-automatic pistol. He testified that the weapon was verified as functional and safe by him. He firing it 3 times to perform analysis on the casings and bullets. And he compared those against the 2 cartridge casings and the bullets that were recovered from the crime scene. He performed side-by-side comparisons under a microscope to confirm that they matched and covered the science of ejection paths, shooting dynamics, and all of this included peer reviews before verifying his conclusions. This was really important foundational testimony. A little bit boring at times, but really foundational. Well, and after that, we heard from the last witness of the day, Detective Inklin from the Chandler Police Department, and she spoke about her really insightful observations at the scene, primarily around the nonchalant and unemotional behavior of Lori Daybell. The detective was assigned to provide the death notification to Lori at the scene, but when she walked up and asked if she could speak to Lori privately because Tylee was there, Lori just blurted out, "I already know, I was there." Well, Detective Inklin interviewed Lori at the office a few hours later. She also interviewed Tylee, and I believe she interviewed Alex, and found Lori's demeanor to be really detached. Lori did tell the detective that she took Charles's car after she took his phone and left the house and took the children to go to school and Burger King. She admitted that she had invited Alex Cox to come to her house to protect her, but she never explained why he brought a loaded gun with him or why he didn't confront Charles sooner. Now, Lori claimed that in the house, that Tylee entered the scene with this bat, poked it at Charles, who took the bat and knocked her to the ground. She then sent Tylee outside while Lori grabbed his phone and ran into the kitchen. She heard a single gunshot, she said, and then she left the house, admitting early on that she was in the house when Charles Vallow was shot and killed. Now, she only talks about one shot, though. She had several phones in her vehicle after hearing the shot and after leaving and seeing Charles lying on the floor, undoubtedly, and she never made a 911 call. It would be nearly an hour before Alex Cox would call 911. And the detective made a point of saying that she found it very odd that Lori claimed that she found the phone in the car, while earlier in her statement she said that she was holding Charles's phone during the fight that led to his death. So, to her, it was really about behavioral observations that stood out. She testified that Lori was calm, detached, and casual, even when discussing Charles's death that had just happened. She knew that Charles had been killed, yet she made no effort to contact Charles's sons or express concerns about notifying them. She didn't call Alex Cox. She didn't call anybody else. She found her casual chatter to also be really disturbing because she was acting very casual, just like it was another day, and giving her history. Maybe it was. All in all, the medical examiner, the insurance representative, the firearms and ballistics science that was discussed, all definitively linked together in a pretty compelling way. Lori's inconsistent stories, her control over Charles's phone, and the lack of emotional response are beginning to paint a picture of someone far more involved in this thing and possibly manipulating it than just some grieving widow. Her own words were played in court, and I think they might become some of the most damaging evidence against her. Well, you can go and listen to that interview. I'm going to put it at the end of this video, and you might really enjoy it. I've cut out all of the waiting time and got it down fairly short. But now, I hope you'll take a minute and drop your comments down below. I'd really love to hear your take on things, and please don't be shy about jumping into the conversation with other people. Just keep things kind and constructive as we work through this really difficult case together. And I want to thank you for watching Profiling Evil. I really do appreciate your support. And I hope that you'll check us out on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. And if you like audio podcasts, folks, I hope you'll check out Profiling Evil's podcasts on your favorite podcast platform. That way you'll get Profiling Evil on the go wherever you are. And if you're hungry for even more true crime, head over to profilingevil.com and check out our interactive story maps, especially the Doomsday Daybell story map. In fact, I'm going to pause for a second and tell you a little bit about that. You can find the Doomsday Story Map by going to profilingevil.com and going under the tab Story Maps. When you're on the Story Maps page, just go down to the Doomsday Daybell Story Map. Click on that and it'll take you right over to the story map where you can start to explore this crazy case. Gives you a chance to look at different things. You'll see these tabs along the bottom here. You can look at Chad's turn in this whole thing, the murder charges against them, an overview, and you can even go in and look at Lori's lifetime here and get a little more information to kind of get an understanding of all these husbands that she had over time. You'll see there's a cool map to the right, and that map kind of shows you the location where each of these events occurred. You can check out her first marriage in 1992 to Nelson Yanes. And then 95 when she marries William Langiola. Take her a little while further to get to 2001 when she marries Joseph Ryan. And we learn a little more about Joseph Ryan in this thing, a little bit about him being found dead, the circumstances around that, and then her marriage to Charles Vallow. And each of these, as you go along the way, will have a little more information about them, including things about Chad Daybell and Tammy Daybell, their relationship and where things go from there. As you explore this story map, you'll find all kinds of cool information, even talking about things like their thoughts on light and dark spirits, or a little discussion about Lori's sister, Stacy Cope, information about Joseph Ryan, and again, his death and what happened around that. So I think you'll really enjoy going into the story map and exploring things on this, including looking at some of the past case history as you explore more about this crazy case. And while you're on the website, check out our Unsolved Homicides and Missing Persons crowdsourced map. This is a global effort to shine light on forgotten cases. And while you're at the website, sign up for our digital newsletter called The Bolo. It's exclusive. The only way that you're going to get it is by signing up at profilingevil.com. And if you like true crime books, check out Deceived, an investigative memoir of the Zion Society cult. It talks about cult dynamics, the way cults recruit people, the way they keep them engaged, and the way, like in this case, they sometimes get away with murder. It really does apply to the principles we're seeing in the Daybook case, and I think you'll find it interesting. And while you're there, check out my book, She Knew No Fear, the story of my great-great-grandmother's murder in 1891, and how I solved that thing 130 years later. It's really a fun read, and I think you'd enjoy it. And either book, if you buy it through profilingevil.com and you live in the United States, I'll sign it and personalize it and ship it to you for free. Anywhere else in the world, you can get those through Amazon.com. So thanks for your support of Profiling Evil. We'll see you soon at the next crime scene.
So,
I told you, it's a crazy question.
Well, so we moved into this house 3 weeks ago because he offered to get me a house here where all my family is. So we were in Houston. And so he's like, we had decided to separate or whatever. So he's like, well, I'll pay for a house for you and for JJ and whatever, because he's all about JJ. He's never about Tylee, but he's all about JJ. Right? Because we adopted him together. He's his great nephew. We adopted him as a baby. And so we adopted him as a baby, and so we've been raising him together. And he travels all the time for business, so he's used to just going back and forth. So he's always gone like Monday through Friday. So he came when we first moved in and brought me stuff from Houston, like a U-Haul, and then he hasn't been back. But it's all these threats on my phone all the time, you know, like whatever, all these things. And then he told me...
What kind of threats?
Just... You'd have to read them to see, but he's always mad at me, right? And he doesn't want a divorce, but I don't like him and don't want to deal with him, so that's just how it is. Like, so we married for 14 years, we've dealt with it for 14 years, of him being horrible to her. Like, he gets in huge fights with her, a lot of things. But anyway, so he said, I'm coming Wednesday night, all of a sudden. I want to see JJ. And I told him, I said, I will never keep JJ from you. You can come see whenever you want to. Come take him to school, whatever. Like, I'm not going to do that.
So when you initially moved, he had said he was going to buy you a house. So you moved here with your...
Yeah, he was going to rent us a house.
And so you moved...
All my family lives here. So we lived here for a long time.
Okay.
And then he moved us to Houston.
Okay.
And we were there with my son. He was out of school. He didn't have any of his, like, services, his DDD, his anything. He, like, ripped him out of school and said, we're moving.
Okay.
And I didn't go with him at first. And he took him. And I let him take him, and I didn't file anything or whatever. And then he filed something against me and said, I'm only going to get supervised visits because I'm crazy and blah, 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 you know, the story. And so I just didn't talk to him for like 30 days and let him take care of him and let him see what I've been doing for the past 7 years, because men need to do that. You know, I have 5 kids. I have grown kids. I have grandkids. Like, okay, you're going to threaten me that you're not going to let me see my child without supervised visitation? Okay, do it for 30 days and see how long it lasts. You're begging me to come pick him up.
Yeah.
Which he did. It's just like, come back and whatever. So I moved in with them to Houston for the family, you know, and Tylee went with me. We drove to Houston from here and left all our family and all his support, all my son's support, like his cousins, everything. And we were there, and I enrolled him in school there. I tried to start all his services, and it takes forever. You know, it takes so long to get that done.
There's no easy transferring.
There's no easy transferring.
You start from the beginning.
It's a totally new thing.
Yeah.
And he didn't do any of it in those 30 days. So he just had gone without services, without even applying. And I'm like, do you even realize? Because he didn't ever do it in the first place. I did it. Long story. I'll keep it short. He hasn't been here in a couple weeks since we moved in. He came. He was very nasty when he was there, but he travels for business. So he went back to the Houston house, and he's like, I'm coming on Wednesday night, and I'm going to come pick up JJ and take him to school Thursday, pick him up Thursday, take him Friday, whatever. And I said, Casey wanted to come to the house, and I said, you can't come stay at this house because you can't get along with Tylee. She's a minor, and she has to live here.
Yeah.
So, because he gets in huge fights with her, and she hates him. And so I'm like, you can't stay at the house, so I will book you a hotel, because he stays in hotels all the time because he travels for business, and the business pays for it, right? So I said, I will book you a hotel nearby.
What does he do?
He works with teachers in their retirement plans, but he goes to them at their school. He mostly works in California, no matter where we live. And we lived in Hawaii, he'd work in California, he'd work in Texas. He has like books of business in different areas. And so he just goes wherever. It kind of just gives him freedom that he doesn't have to stay home every day and take care of special needs child. It's like an excuse, right? So I've done that myself for the past 7 years anyway. And I was a single mom before I married him with my 2 kids. And he had 2 kids. We got married, tried to make a family. You know how it goes. Anyway. So he said he was coming last night. I said, well, you can't stay at this house because you can't get along with Tylee, and I'll get you a hotel and you can come play with JJ. But he goes to school all day. I got him back into his school. His services, I met with the DDD yesterday, and they finally are getting his services back, but we're paying $125 a day to have him back at school because he's so out of his routine. He's been a nightmare on the floor, kicking stuff, hitting stuff, walls, like, he just ripped him out of his life. So, anyway, just how he is, because he only thinks about himself, so. he says, coming to get JJ, and JJ's like, I don't want Dad, because he knows Dad took him away, so he was freaking out, right? So I didn't tell him he was even coming, like, Dad's going to come take you to school or anything. So he didn't bother me last night, which I was surprised. I was expecting kind of an ambush for him to kind of, like, come over or be just mean and say, it's my house, I'm on the lease, I'm going to stay here, kind of thing. Because that's kind of his macho attitude. And so he came this morning. I was getting JJ ready.
So he got in last night, but he wasn't at the house last night.
Yeah, I didn't hear from him, except for he texted me and said, I'll be there at 7:30 to pick up JJ.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, that was good, because I didn't hear from him. And then he came over in the morning, and he's like banging on the door. I'm like, oh great, here we go, you know. And I was just gonna be nice. I was just gonna be nice as possible. And I had JJ stuff all ready for school. And so.
Do you remember about what time he got there?
He said he'd be there at 7:30, but it was more like 7:40ish or 7:35. I don't know.
Okay.
But I remember thinking, looking at the clock, and he was there at 7:30, and he's usually Mr. On
punctual.
time. Yes. So I was like, okay. And then JJ was like, oh, Dad. And then he was like, Mommy, and like ran to me and was like holding me. He's like, you're not taking me to school. And I was like, it's okay, Dad, can just drive you to school. It's not a big deal. You know, just trying to make it whatever.
Calm.
Yeah, calm. And then he was just being real smirky and real like jerky, you know, to me. And I was like ignoring him, whatever. And so he was like,
and your brother lives there with you?
No.
Okay.
He had stayed with me last night because I was worried he was going to come over and cause trouble with me.
Okay.
And just wanted someone else there, like my brother there, because I trust my brother. And it's been a long story. Like, I had to go live at my brother's when he took JJ, and, you know, he's just been difficult. So, anyway. So I got JJ's stuff ready, and he was like, well, and he's like this about timing. He's like, I'm leaving in 20 minutes, because it's like 15 minutes to the school, and like you can't get there early, they don't open the gates until 8:20 or something like that. And I said, well, why don't you just go now? I don't want him in the house. I'm like, why don't you just go now and take him to Burger King, because that's what he likes for breakfast. And he's very particular about food. Like, he wanted chicken fries for breakfast and a Sprite. Like, and I just give him what he wants, because if you don't give him what he wants, then it's like on the floor screaming, dragging him into school. Like, and he's big and he's heavy, and it's hard for me to handle. But anyway, so I said, just go. And so he said, okay. So I gave him a backpack. He got in the car. This is his MO, right? He always leaves something in the house and comes back. He never leaves the first time. I always expect my husband to come back into the house, right? So I guess he had left his phone on the counter.
So he initially left with the backpack and with JJ? And
so he put them in the car,
in
the driveway, and then he came back in, right? So I kissed JJ goodbye. He came back in, and his phone was on the counter, and I had his phone. And he was like, giving me my phone, and I was like, why don't you show me your text that you've been texting, blah, 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 you know, whatever. Because he's like acting really weird, like he's plotting something against me. Like, I'm like, why are you even here? Like, what did you come here for? You know, he's been talking to my other brother, and my brother came into town at the same time last night, and I haven't talked to my brother in a while, my other brother, and I was like, and so he was texting him on the phone when he first got to my house, and I'm like, why are you texting Adam? Like, do you even talk to him? Like, my other brother. And, you know, he's been telling me all these texts, like, you're going down, blah, 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 blah. He's blaming me for our marriage breaking up, and my niece getting divorced, and my friend getting divorced. He said, I'm a destroyer of families. Because I want everybody to get divorced. I'm like, what would my motivation be for people getting divorced? So I could babysit the kids more? Like, why would I have any control over what people do?
Yeah.
So it's just very odd. But anyway, he goes nuts. He's gone nuts on us a lot of times. Tyler and I have had to leave with JJ over the years probably 5 times and just stay in a hotel for 2 days because he goes nuts. Like, you don't know what's going to set him off. Like, whatever. And she's mad at me for always, like, going back. But we had JJ, and he's special needs, and it's really hard. Like, it's even hard to take care of it by yourself.
So when you say he goes nuts, that can mean a lot of different things.
Right.
So goes nuts like yelling and screaming.
Yeah,
goes
yelling
nuts
and screaming.
Like breaking
like,
things.
Yes.
Goes nuts like physical violence.
He's never really, besides like grabbing us and pushing us, but not like punching us us or something, but with Tylee, he has gotten physical
Okay.
before, and with my grown son.
Like physical how?
Like got into a physical fist fight with my son when he was 16.
Okay.
And he came after Tylee 2 times in Hawaii.
Okay.
And like went like he was going to hit her, but then I got in between them.
Uh-huh.
Right.
How old was she when that happened?
Probably 13 and 14.
Okay. So this morning he comes back in and...
He comes back in, I wouldn't give him his phone. He was screaming at me to give him his phone. He was very worried about whatever was on his text that he did not want me to see. And so I was just holding it there, and he was screaming at me. And I was kind of walking towards around the house with it, so he couldn't get it. He's like reaching for it and stuff like that. And so Tylee came out of her room upset, and she had a bat, and she told him to leave her mother alone, like, right? So she was really whatever, and he's screaming at her, "Don't you hit me with that bat," and blah, 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 blah. And then my brother heard all the commotion because he was in there in bed, and so he came out into the main room, and I guess whatever.
What's your brother's name?
Alex.
Alex, okay.
And then he just started, he was screaming and he was super upset and whatever, and he's yelling at Tylee, "Don't you hit me with that bat," and blah, blah, blah. And so Tylee, I guess, I don't know if she swung at him or what, but he like grabbed the bat from Tylee and then went to like hit Tylee with the bat. It was, and I was right there, and they were right there, and my brother grabbed him from behind, like just to stop him from hitting Tylee.
You go like this, like he grabbed him like...
Yeah, from behind, like just kind of to pull him back. And then they got into the thing, and he's hitting him with the bat, and they're on the ground, like grappling around or whatever. And then, I mean, it was all
and he
quickly.
And he hit your brother with the bat while they were grappling and stuff?
Yeah, yes, he was hitting him with the bat, like swinging the bat, you know, back and forth, and they were kind of like on the ground, and I was like freaking out trying to go around, knowing JJ was in the car, right? And so then he got up and he had the bat like this towards me, and I was going around the other side to try to just get out of his range where he couldn't hit me. And then I had told Tylee, because she was on the ground, because after he took the bat from her, she fell back. And so I told her, I was like, "Go get in the car with JJ. Like, I don't want JJ coming in to the house, or, and I wanted her out of the way. I wanted the kids out of the way of whatever this fight was going to be." And then,
do you remember what your husband or your brother were saying or yelling during all of this? If they were at all?
Just kind of, "Get off me, ow," or whatever, you know, whatever. They were like, "Don't talk to my niece about whatever." Like, it was, I don't remember specifics, but they were kind of both, they were kind of in the heat of it. I don't think there was many words that I remember.
So Tylee goes outside.
Yeah, she was outside.
And then what happened?
Then they got up from that, and my brother had like stepped back, I guess, and then Charles was coming with me at the back, yelling at me to give him his phone still, because I had it in my hand. It was all really quickly. And then when I went around kind of in the circle, then my brother was there.
When you said when you were going around and he was coming at you with the bat, how was he holding the bat?
Just like that, like backwards. In one arm.
Like he was swinging it backwards? He would have done like
he would have swung it backwards at me, not frontwards.
Okay, yeah.
He was a professional baseball player.
Okay.
So it wasn't a good idea for Tyler to get out of that.
Probably not the...
I mean, he played semi-pro when he was young. But, yeah, and then I was kind of turned around, and we were all right there in that room, except for the kids had been outside by that time, and I heard the gunshot. And
so you heard the shot? Did you actually see the shot, or did you just hear it?
I had gone around to the kitchen to get away from him, and so back around. So I don't know if you went in the house.
I didn't, so I'm a little bit of a disadvantage.
Yeah, so I didn't see when I didn't see the shot, I heard it, and then I came back around and I saw that he was on the ground.
Okay.
And was freaking out.
Yeah.
And so I was just freaking out, and it just went into mama. I'm like, I've got to go to get JJ to school. I've got to get to the kids. I just felt like I got to get to the kids. And so I just went outside and to see if they were in there okay. I didn't want them coming back in the house when all that was going on. And got JJ in the car, and he was trying to come in. And Tylee was like looking at me with like the crazy eyes, like what just happened. And I told her to get in the car and we're going to take JJ to school. And I just left.
When you came back in and you saw him on the ground, where was your brother? Did you see him where he was at?
Yeah, he was right in front of him.
Okay.
Like, it all happened very quickly. That
Right.
was, I mean, I feel like I was there because I was right there, and like a second later. Like,
Okay.
I just went around the kitchen to get away from him.
Did your brother say anything to you at all? Do you remember?
No, we were both just in shock.
Okay.
Like, it was just I didn't say anything. I went out with the kids just to check on them first, and I was going to come back in maybe, but I didn't. I was like, I just have to get him to school.
Okay.
And call the police and come back, whatever.
Did anybody say did you or your brother say anything at some point about calling the police or calling 911? Do you remember?
Yeah, he called me.
Okay.
And he said, are you taking JJ to school? And I said, yeah, we need to call the police. And he said, okay.
Okay. So he called you when you didn't come back inside, basically?
Right.
Okay.
Because I was like in the car for a minute, and then I was like, what do I do? And I didn't want JJ to go inside, and I didn't know what to do, and Tylee was freaking out. I was trying to get them away from the scene.
Understandable. And you may not know this, so, because I know you heard the shot, do you know at what point your brother had the gun? Do you know if he had it when they got in their first fight, or did he have to go get it, or do you know that at all?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
And do you remember if you ever heard your brother?
I didn't see him ever leave the room.
Okay.
So, it was so fast. All that was so fast. Like him on the ground, rolling around, and I'm screaming. And
this probably happened in a couple seconds.
Yeah, I mean, it was like super fast.
And I don't know if you know this or not, does your brother normally carry a gun? Like, I carry a gun everywhere I go.
Right. Like, I know he's a gun person. Like, he has guns and things.
Okay.
He's good with guns.
Did you know that he had one with him?
No.
When he came over?
No, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did, because he's very, very professional with guns.
Proficient, professional. Responsible is usually a good
right, but responsible with guns.
And then, do you remember if at any time, so you were trying to get away from him, and you heard the shot. Prior to the shot, do you remember at any point hearing your husband or your brother saying anything to either of them?
No.
So my second very ridiculous question is there anything else that I didn't ask about or anything that we didn't cover that you think is important? I always ask that just because I wasn't there, and so we're going through something that happened a super small amount of time.
Yes. Can I step like
Yeah, go for it.
Just thinking. Just that, he was just so angry, like super scary.
Did you
know how you take your phone away from like a 16-year-old and they freak out? Like their world disintegrates. Like I've taken my phone away from a 16-year-old boy before, and he's like wanted to kill himself because like they cannot function. That's how it was. It was like, is something on his phone that he does not want me to see, that he was like freaking out, like To the point where I thought he would hit me in the back of the head to get the phone.
Okay. So you thought, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you thought it was possible that he was going to hurt you.
Absolutely, he was going to hurt me and Tylee.
Okay.
Not JJ, he would never hurt JJ.
Okay.
And he hurt my brother. Like,
yeah.
He was going, like, ballistic about, it was bad.
Okay. I'm going to go talk to her real quick.
Okay.
And then if, obviously, you know, we'll be here for a little bit, hopefully not too much longer. But if you think of anything or there's anything that kind of pops in your head or something else that we didn't cover, obviously. So I'm going to go talk to her for just a little bit, and then I'll kind of come back and check with you, and then we'll kind of go from there. So I know my partner's talking to your brother over in one of the other interview rooms. So we're going to just try to get, you know, as much done as we can and go from there.
Okay.
Okay? And then, is there anybody that you need to call or anything, or you want to wait a little bit?
I don't know what I would say.
No. And wait a little bit, we'll see.
Yeah. I don't know what I would say.
And if you want to, you can think about it. So we do have victim services that work within the police department. They're right over here. They're not cops, they're civilians. And they do, Jessica, who's out there with the fire department, so they're kind of our crisis response. They come right away. Mm-hmm. So our victim services that work in the department are kind of more long-term type support systems. So they're just a really good resource because they do a lot of stuff with our families and things like that, and can help with support services and questions you might have.
She's been through so much.
So it might be a good idea.
I just can't stand for her to have to go through all this.
Yeah, it might be a good idea maybe before I take you guys back today that I get one of them to come in and maybe sit and talk with you guys and see. And it's not something there's a bunch of stuff they can, you know, offer, but it's good to have a contact and like a name and a face and a phone number.
That'd be good.
You know, that way maybe a couple days from now, a week from now, or if there's something going on or you think you need help with something, it may not be something that's necessarily up like me and my partner's alley, but it very much may be up theirs. So I'd like for you to meet one of them before we leave. That way, hopefully if there's something that they can help you and your daughter with, they can, or even JJ or whatever else.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I haven't even thought about him.
Yeah. So.
I mean, he's used to him not being there, but he wouldn't understand even if you told him.
Right.
Like, that somebody passed away, he doesn't understand what
that means. Well, I mean, it's hard at 7 to understand that
anyway. That's true, but with him he just doesn't, which is probably better because he doesn't comprehend things, but I don't know, it's just, that's a lot to think about.
Yeah. So let me go find one of them, and then we'll make sure that you guys get to meet with them before you leave, because that might be something very helpful for you guys. And I'm going to go speak with your daughter for just a little bit, and we'll kind of go from there. Okay? And if you need anything, let me know, okay? Okay.